Let me start this off the right way, because I know somebody's going to clip this out of context. I don't support violence against anyone. People are entitled to their freedom of speech. That's the deal. You can say what you want in this country. But here's the part people forget. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences. You can yell whatever you want into a microphone, but eventually words ripple. They land somewhere, and sometimes they come right back around. Now, me personally, I didn't really follow Charlie Kirk while he was alive. I'd see his face pop up here and there on the timeline, always with that smirk, always acting like he's cracked the code on life because he figured out how to own the libs in front of a college freshman.
Do you feel proud of yourself for debating college kids who are unprepared to speak in front of an audience like yourself? Hold on. You're 30 years old. We can agree you're 30 years old, right? Do you think that's a little bit silly?
Are you a voter?
I am a voter. I'm a registered
so
voter.
I vote and you vote. So I'm talking to voters of this country that will determine the future of Western civilization. That's what I'm doing here today. Yeah? Wait, hold on. How is it any different than a professor talking to you?
Than a professor talking to you? Who are you?
Well, important enough for you to come up to a microphone.
But after his passing, I decided to really look into what he was about. And honestly, I was disgusted. The bubble he lived in, Charlie Kirk, lived inside a bubble where everything was a culture war. And if you didn't fit his idea of America, you were the enemy. He openly said empathy wasn't real. That compassion was just weakness.
Instead, it is to say you're actually not in pain. So let's just very short clip. Bill Clinton in the 1990s, it was all about empathy and sympathy. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, but it is very effective when it comes to politics. Sympathy I prefer more than empathy. That's a separate topic for a different time.
Think about how twisted that is. To look at human suffering and say, yeah, that's fake. That's not just a bad take. That's the foundation of a worldview that refuses to see other people's humanity. And when you live in that bubble long enough, detached from reality, surrounded only by people who clap when you say the most hateful things, you start to believe your own performance. But the thing about bubbles, they always pop. Since his death, his friends in Congress have been out here pointing fingers at Democrats, talking like this is the start of some political war. They're on Twitter acting like they're the victims now, like the other side pulled the trigger. But let's not twist this. The truth, according to inside sources, is that the person who presumably ended Kirk's life was most likely a MAGA supporter himself.
We begin in Spanish Fork, Utah. That's where Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old suspect in the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, is being held. While officials have yet to identify a precise motive for Wednesday's shooting, we are learning new details about the suspected killer. His family members say he recently became more politically active. CBS's Carter Evans, who has been following the new developments, joins us with the very latest. Carter, good evening.
Good evening, Jerika. Tyler Robinson is being held in jail behind me in a special housing unit where he's being evaluated to determine if he's a risk to himself or others. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's widow has shared her message to his alleged assassin.
You have no idea what you just have unleashed.
In her first public comments Friday night, Erica Kirk was emotional, but filled with determination that the murder of her husband will not end his life's work.
If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea.
That's the irony. The monster they've been feeding, the constant fear-mongering, the rage they've been selling on podcasts and Fox News, it didn't just vanish. It turned inward. And now they want to act shocked that the fire they kept throwing gasoline on finally burned their own. And here's the part that gets me. People keep saying, bitch, no, but Charlie had a wife, he had kids, show some empathy. And I hear that, I do. But you know what? That's something he should have considered before he made hate his career path, because let's be real. When George Floyd was murdered on camera, this same crowd mocked him. They said he was a drug addict, a criminal. They made memes out of his suffering, out of his family's grief. They laughed, they mocked, they dehumanized him. And now we're supposed to turn around and extend them the very compassion they've been spitting on for years? I'm not saying his family doesn't deserve comfort. Nobody deserves to lose a father, a husband, a loved one. But the truth is, this crowd has money, power, and protection that most grieving families never see. They'll be fine in the long term. Meanwhile, the communities Charlie targeted with his words are still fighting for their lives every single day. And let's not skip over this part. The prime suspect in his assassination, Tyler Robinson, is a registered Trump voter, one of their own.
And we now have more information about this suspect. We have a name to tell you, and this is according to multiple sources and our team of reporters covering federal law enforcement, Tom Winter, Mike Cosner, our colleagues. Tyler Robinson is the suspect in custody. He is from Utah. He's in custody and with state authorities in Utah, born in 2003. And so Tyler Robinson is the name that, according to multiple sources, is the suspect who is in custody. From our reporting, we understand he has been in custody for a number of hours now. And what happens with that, as Morgan was just saying, there was a point where authorities knew very little about who this person was. Well, once you have an individual identified, many new doors open. Tyler Robinson will now be subject to having all of his electronics reviewed, subject to a search warrant, and that would be the typical process now, that once he's identified and in custody, authorities are able to get the court permission to execute search warrants. That could be places where he lives, seizing any phones, digital footprint, any of those things. Also checking the records for the purchase of the weapon that was used here. Can they tie that weapon to him? All of those avenues are now open to federal authorities. This is a state crime, not a federal crime on its face, meaning a murder is a state crime. They would be looking for any avenues that allow them to find some kind of federal charge, if there is one that's applicable and appropriate, to add to this case with the joint work of federal authorities and state authorities. Tyler Robinson is the suspect, according to our sources.
So while Charlie's last words on stage were about gang violence, poetically, he was taken out by his own gang, allegedly. That's the kind of irony you can't write. It's Shakespearean. You build your empire on division, stoke the fire, and then the flames reach back and consume you. And now his supporters are online, crying, wailing, devastated about his tragic end. But where was that same energy before? Where was all this outrage when black men and women were being killed in broad daylight, their bodies left in the street, their names dragged through the mud? It hits different when it's your own, right? Watching someone from your side be gruesomely murdered right before your eyes in front of his wife and kids, now maybe, just maybe, they feel a fraction of the pain our communities have felt for centuries, like the slaves who watched family members ripped away from them, like Emmett Till's mother, who had to show the world what was done to her son, like the countless names we've marched for, only to be mocked by the same movement that is now crying for Charlie Kirk. But the cycle continues. Instead of turning this tragedy into a moment of unity, instead of finally admitting, hey, maybe hate isn't the way, what did they do? They doubled down. They blamed Democrats. They screamed about war. They fed the cycle of hate because that's all they know how to do. This is the same group that threatens HBCUs, blames victims for their own deaths, mocks suffering, and when all else fails, historically, they've always turned to divide and conquer. And when divide and conquer doesn't work, they burn it all down. That's not just politics, that's history. And history keeps repeating itself because people like Charlie Kirk made sure of it. So, no, I don't celebrate death, but I can't pretend to feel sympathy for someone who didn't believe in sympathy himself. When you spend your life mocking empathy, when you pour hate into the world, when you tell people that compassion is fake, don't be surprised when compassion isn't there for you. Freedom of speech is real. You can say what you want, but the consequences, they're real too. And what happened to Charlie Kirk is just another reminder that you can only live in a bubble for so long before reality finally bursts it. 6. Anastasia J. Casey, the author who doesn't exist now. Here's where things get straight up eerie. The book that dropped the day before his passing, The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, was allegedly written by someone named Anastasia J. Casey. Sounds legit, right? Except here's the kicker, and nobody can find her. No photos, no background, no author history, nothing. It's like this person doesn't exist, and that's when it starts to feel less like reality and more like Metal Gear Solid 2. Remember that moment when Raiden realizes the Colonel isn't real?
Raiden, are you having fun playing with the new AI toys?
Well, yeah, I am. You can make pictures of cute anime girls and...
Enjoy it while it lasts, Raiden.
What do you mean?
Did you really think that civilians would be granted unrestricted access to such powerful military weapons forever?
Military weapons. Are you implying that this technology was created by the government?
Of course it was. This AI technology has been used by the intelligence agencies to warp the public's perception of reality for years. All in the name of national security, of course.
But why would they suddenly make the tech public and let everyone start using it?
Why would we indeed, Raiden?
What? What in the hell are you?
Your question is irrelevant. By creating a new problem, we can cultivate a desired reaction to it in order to manufacture consent for our preferred solutions. In short, it's justification for a war.
A war? On who or what?
A war on misinformation. By arming the public with these AI weapons, everyone becomes a potential enemy combatant. Then we will have justification for unprecedented security measures. It all comes down to confusion and identity, Raiden.
Identity?
Identity. This AI technology is Pandora's box. Pretty soon the internet will be mired in total illusion. Perfect AI speech, audio, and video synthesis will drown out reality. Then AI bots will flood social media. No one will be able to tell the difference between interacting with an AI machine or a real human online. Even telephone calls will become totally untrustworthy. That is when we will present our solution. Mandatory digital identity verification for all humans at all times. The only way to ensure that you're dealing with a real flesh and blood human being and not an AI-generated mirage.
But why?
Total information control. For too long, the internet has acted as a double-edged sword. Its potential for anonymous user activity allows anyone at all to spread any thoughts, ideas, or information patterns that they please with impunity. State secrets, dangerous ideas, ludicrous conspiracy theories, misinformation, and disinformation. Until now, there has been no easy solution to this problem. Our digital identity platform will finally put an end to anonymity online. It will allow us to trace misinformation and other dangerous communications to its source and exact appropriate justice.
That's crap! I won't go along with it, and others will resist.
You won't have a choice, Raiden.
That he's actually an AI, a government construct designed to feed him misinformation? That's exactly what this feels like. An author created out of thin air, dropping a book that predicts an assassination the day before it happens. It doesn't feel organic, it doesn't feel random, it feels generated, manufactured, like the book wasn't written by a human being at all, but by something or someone meant to seed a narrative, plant the idea, and then let the real life event validate it. So now you have to ask, if Anastasia J. Casey doesn't exist, then who does? Who pulled the strings to create this breadcrumb? Was it an AI operation, a disinformation campaign, or was the name just a mask for a shadow player who didn't want to be found? Either way, it adds a whole new layer of chills to the story. Not only does the book predict an event, but the author is basically a ghost. And that, my friends, is the kind of detail that makes you realize we might be looking at something way bigger than coincidence.